Call the meeting to order. It's a meeting of September 15th. We'll note that Commissioner Decker is absent, as is City Administrator Mr. Kessel. The first item of business is the order of business. I've been informed that we will be adding an item 4F, and 4F will be report on 40th Street by Mr. Colling. Are there any other changes to the agenda? Hearing none, would there be a motion to approve the order of business as amended?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have the motion and the second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. The motion carries. Next item of business then is the consent agenda. Are there any items you'd like to discuss that are on the consent agenda?
Mr. Chairman, I'll move that we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
We have the motion and the second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. Mr. Jackson?
Aye.
Mr. Altman?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. The motion carries. We'll go to the non-timetable agenda. The first item there is a sewer revenue bond, and Mr. Colling will introduce that.
Thank you, Mr. President and Commissioners. This resolution in your packets is a resolution providing for the issuance of a sewer revenue bond with the state of North Dakota. This is lending that has been provided for within our capital improvement plan. This SRF loan, approximately $32 million, will fund a number of wastewater infrastructure projects, including the West Lift Station, the West Gravity Sewer, Lift Station 12, Lift Station 14, Lift Station 5. There are a couple of these projects that are already under construction, and this loan from the state SRF fund is required in order to complete our obligations under those projects. City staff would recommend approval. This would be Resolution 52-2014.
Thank you, Mr. Colling. You've heard his introduction. Are there any comments or questions? Mr. Colling, do you know, I guess, life to date, how many of the, or what the amount of the prior resolutions are that we've approved with the state revolving fund?
Mr. Zuroff may know better than I.
I believe total is close to 80 million.
This would be the final one then? Because I know we're expecting eventually to borrow $82 million from them.
There is another component to the SRF loan that will still come, which is a sales tax bond. That's about $10 million or so. So I think this resolution will give us authority up to about $72 million.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions? Is there a motion regarding this resolution?
Mr. President, move to approve Resolution 52-2014.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have the motion and the second. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Olman?
Aye.
Mr. Jackson?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries. Item B is a resolution regarding ports to planes, and Mr. Colling will introduce this one also.
Mr. President, this resolution is requested by the Ports to Plains Alliance. The Ports to Plains Alliance is a group that is promoting federal infrastructure projects in the Ports to Plains corridor, which runs more or less from West Texas through the western part of the Great Plains states up through North Dakota, looking to improve the transportation corridor within that area. And the Ports to Plains Alliance has requested this resolution encouraging members of Congress to pass a short-term funding bill for federal infrastructure projects, as well as long-term funding for federal infrastructure. Currently, the current federal transportation project or program expires September 30th, 2014. There has not yet been passed a continuing resolution or continuing funding for federal infrastructure projects. This resolution would be your encouragement as a board to members of Congress to address the funding shortfalls within the federal transportation project. This would be Resolution 53, 2014, should you agree to adopt the resolution, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Colling. You've heard his introduction. I assume you've read the resolution in the packet. Any comments or questions by commissioners? I think this is something we generally support, so.
And it affects more than just Ports to Plains. It affects some of our annual funding that comes from the federal government through DOT.
I would make a motion to approve.
We have the motion to approve Resolution 53. Is there a second?
I'll second.
We have the motion, the second. Further discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. Mr. Altman?
Aye.
Mr. Jackson?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries. Go to item C, which is annexations. The first one there involves Badlands storage, and Mr. Colling will introduce this item.
Mr. President, Commissioners, back at the August 14th meeting, the City Commission adopted a resolution providing for the annexation of Badlands Storage Subdivision. This is an approximately 3.86 acre parcel of property. It's located north of 29th Street West and east of Highway 22. The applicant for annexation is the only landowner involved in this annexation. However, we did provide notice to the county and to any other affected landowners of this annexation as required by Century Code. We have received no protest to the annexation, and the resolution in your packets would be a finding of the commission that no protests have been filed, and upon recording of that resolution, this 3.86 acre parcel of property would become part of the city limits of Dickinson. This would be Resolution 54-2014, Mr. President.
And Mr. Colling, along with this, there is a public hearing then also?
For this resolution, we did not receive any protests,
So there is no public
so there is no public hearing that would be necessary for this.
Okay. All right, you've heard Mr. Colling's introduction. Any comments or questions regarding the Badlands storage annexation resolution? Not, is there a motion? This is Resolution 54-2014. Is there a motion regarding this resolution?
Make a motion to approve.
And I'll second.
We have the motion, the second. It is discussion. Hearing none, we'll vote. Mr. Altman?
Aye.
Mr. Jackson? Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries. We'll go to item 2, which is the Cook 5th Edition and adjoining property annexation, and Mr. Colling will also introduce this.
Mr. President, Commissioners, also at the August 14th meeting, the Commission adopted a resolution that provided for the annexation of property adjacent to State Avenue North. The total annexation area was about 260 acres, including property both on the east and west side of State Avenue North. The resolution was published as required by law, and notice sent to the affected property owners and to the Stark County Board of County Commissioners. We did receive 2 protests to this annexation, one from landowner Dean Kubis and one from landowner Janet Perkel. Their combined property amounts to about 19 acres, a little over 19 acres, or approximately 7.35% of the total annexation area. The applicant for annexation in this instance is Mike Cook, or Cook Property Investments, the developer of property on the west side of State Avenue. He is in the audience and I believe would like to address the commission prior to the opening of the public hearing, as I believe some of their plans regarding this annexation have changed or at least been delayed. So I would, Mr. President, I believe that's all I have for this item.
Okay. Mr. Colling, it's 4:40. We've got a 4:50 timetable item, so we'll let Mr. Cook speak, assuming you don't go much more than 10 minutes. And then we're going to go to the timetable agenda, and then we'll come back to the public hearing part. So Mr. Cook or Mr. Cook's representative.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioners, my name is Scott Forsberg. I'm here today on behalf of Cook McCormick Properties on this annexation request. This annexation request was begun by a petition from Cook McCormick. And we have been in discussions, or they have been in discussions with city planning staff about the development agreement, and discussions have centered on infrastructure issues and what the developers would have to fund. We had hoped to continue those discussions this week. We received the draft of the development agreement last Tuesday and have been working on our proposal ever since. And with Mr. Kessel being out of town and so forth, it's been difficult to get together on that. But I've been in contact with City Attorney Coling on this, and we've discussed it. And we have made the request to him in writing that we're going to make to you tonight. And that is that we're asking that the formal City Commission adoption of this resolution be tabled until the parties have had more time to discuss the development agreement and its terms. We're confident that an agreement can be reached, but we simply haven't had enough time to discuss it to make sure that that's the case. So we're asking that just simply the decision on the resolution, public hearing would go forward, everything would go forward, but the decision on the resolution would be tabled until the next meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions?
Any questions? All right. Thank you. Well, at this time, we declare the public hearing open. Anyone wishing to comment may do so. Come to the podium, state your name, and we'll hear your comments.
Hi, I'm Jenna Perkle, one of the landowners, part of this annexation. I'd like to speak to you tonight, not so much about the annexation, but about the damages that we've come up before planning and zoning, the city, and the commission for 3 years now. Here we go again with another request from the same developer, and we have not had one thing done to our properties. We have nothing to show for any of these meetings we have attended. Just a lot of talk that, you know, we won't let Mr. Cook go ahead and develop this without you being taken care of. Well, I just want to say we're in our 3rd summer now. I can't cross my property. I've got prairie dogs building holes on the other side of my property. I can't get over there with my tractor to fill the holes and take care of things. I just can't use my property as it was intended. And this is the 3rd summer. Now, if we go ahead, what bargaining chips do we have with this developer who does not take care of his problems? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Dean Kubis. I'm one of the property owners also being annexed, and as far as the annexation, I know I can't do anything about that. But what I'm concerned about is all the damages I've got. I've got dead trees, I've got, my dams are filling up with silt. I just want to know, what are his intentions? I mean, why wasn't this water thing worked on this spring? No, he's working on that other development and leaving us high and dry. Why isn't he working on it? So we can see if it works. So if they do something, it's going to take a year down the road for us to even know if it's going to work. But I just feel as of right now, everything should just be put on hold till he does what he said he was supposed to do, like we were told. And that's my concern. Another concern I have, I know you guys are putting in, you're going to be putting in that paved road, curb, gutter, and all that. Another concern I have is, you guys put that sidewalk in there. What if some kids cross the fence and go swimming in my dams and drown? Who's gonna be liable? I mean, will the city put up a chain link fence there or something so they can't go over there? You know, I don't know. Because I don't wanna be sued because somebody died in my water, in my dams. And I don't want nobody to die in there, but, you know, it's a possibility. So as for now, that's basically mine, and, you know, we're not getting no results from Cook whatsoever, and I just feel this should be tabled till then. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kubas.
My name is Art Sickler. I'm also a landowner that butts up against Mr. Cook's project. I'd like to address that pond that they put in there. They put a settlement pond right up against my property. The water dumps right on my fence. They couldn't set it back. And another thing, that pond is worthless. There's no room in it for settlement. The settlement comes right into our property. I got the same problems they have. It's killed a lot of vegetation out, and that pond should be dug out, and it would probably serve a purpose to collect the settlement before it comes onto our property. But this way, it runs right through that pond, and there's no stopping it. Everything comes through. And if you go down and look at the debris that's collected with those pipes, they're always plugged up. It's a mess. If you ever went down and looked at it, it's a eyesore. And we were promised a couple of years ago, like Jan and Dean said, that there would be no further, he wouldn't be able to develop that other area or be an annex until he settles with us. But there's been no settlement. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Stickler. Anybody else care to comment?
Briefly, Chairman, Commissioners, I just wanted to let the Commission know that the drainage issues are a part of the development agreement. They're in there, and they're one of the issues that we need to discuss to get resolved before we'd like to go forward with this annexation. So it appears we're asking for essentially the same thing that Mr. Kubas is, which is to wait until we get the issues all hammered out. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to comment? Okay, we'll declare the public hearing closed. Commissioners, would you like to act on the request to table this until the next meeting?
We need a motion to table?
Second.
I'm
I
asking,
think
is
he
that what
does.
we need?
I think a motion to table will be appropriate, if you wish to do so.
I'll make that motion.
And Mr. Steiner seconds it. So we have the motion to table and the second. Is there any discussion?
Maybe just, and Mr. Curtan can comment better than I can probably, but we have received our agenda packets for planning and zoning day after tomorrow, on which the final plat is included for this area, or for a portion of this area. That plat approval is contingent on the developer agreeing to sign the development agreement. As has been stated, this drainage issue is addressed in the development agreement. I expect there's probably not agreement yet, but before that plat is approved, that development agreement will have to be signed. And that will come before planning and zoning. I don't know what will happen this Wednesday, but the issue needs to be resolved.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Jackson. Anybody else? Okay, we have a motion to table, and it's been seconded. There's no other discussion. We're going to vote. Mr. Jackson?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Altman?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries. So we're going to go to the timetable agenda now. And we have a 450 item there, and that's the introduce some new police officers and administer the oath of office. So, Mr. Colleen and Chief Dossinger.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the Commission. This time, I'd like to introduce two newer members of the Dickens Police Department to the community, and also to the Commission. Officer Alexis Fisher and Officer Jesse Becker. You guys want to stand forward, please? Officer Fisher started in February of 2014, comes to us from California, and is a DSU graduate. Officer Becker started in June of 2014 and comes to us from Bemidji, Minnesota.
Mr. President, I'll administer the oath.
Thank you, Mr. Colleen.
I state your name. Will support, obey, and defend
Support, obey, and defend
the Constitution and laws of the United States,
the Constitution and laws of the United States,
the state of North Dakota, and the city of Dickinson,
the state of North Dakota, and the city of Dickinson,
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
and that I will strive always
and that I will strive always
to meet the highest ethical standards implicit in my employment,
to meet the highest ethical standards listed in my employment
and in furtherance of the best public interest.
and in the furtherance of the best public interest.
Congratulations.
It's also customary after you sign the oath of office, you introduce any guests you may have in the audience, and then tell us a little more about yourself than what the chief did.
Okay. I'm Alexis Fisher. Today I brought my boyfriend with me, Ryan Payne. I came out here to play volleyball for DSU and to finish my degree. And then during my degree, I was able to intern with the Dickinson Police Department and fell in love. So I'm very honored to be here and to work for the city of Dickinson.
Okay, now you fell in love with your boyfriend or with the department? How about-
With both.
With both, okay.
I felt very at home when I stepped and interned at the police
Well,
department.
Well, good. And you're from California?
Yes.
Okay,
Yep,
well,
from Woodland, California, which is
Yep.
northern.
okay.
And it's very different from here.
Most places are. All right. Officer Becker.
Hi, my name's Jesse Becker. I brought with me today my wife, Melody Becker, and our 2-month-old Finley Becker. We moved out here because of the great opportunity that was presented to us. Like Chief Dassinger said, I graduated from Bemidji State University, went to Alec Tech for my skills program, and I had a couple of friends from there come out to Dickinson, and they have a lot of good things to say about the department here. And I'm starting to learn the same thing as well, that it's a family here, and they support everyone very well, and I look forward to a long career here as well. So,
Well, thank you. Are there any comments or questions by commission members for these two officers? Well, congratulations, and we're glad you're here.
Thank
So,
you.
thank you.
okay. Okay, we're going to drop back down to the non-timetable agenda. We'll go to item D, and we have the second reading and final passage of ordinance 1561, the extraterritorial zoning extension, and Mr. Colling will also introduce this item.
Mr. President, this ordinance provides for the extension of the city's extraterritorial zone as provided by law. Pursuant to Century Code, a city less than 25,000, which is our, at least our census population at this point, is entitled to an extraterritorial zone of 2 miles. Recent annexations have extended that area for the city of Dickinson, and this ordinance would allow the city to take full advantage of the potential 2 miles of extraterritorial zone. There are a couple places within the proposed extension that do not extend out the full 2 miles. Those are based upon our development expectations, as well as some natural barriers, topography barriers and such, that we don't anticipate development happening, or municipal development in any event. This resolution, or this ordinance rather, is not changed from first reading, and city staff would recommend approval, Mr. President.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Colling. You've heard his introduction. At this time, we'd ask if there's anyone from the public that would like to comment regarding proposed ordinance 1561. If so, you may come to the podium, state your name, and we'll hear your comments. Anybody from the public? There's no one from the public that wishes to comment. Any comments or questions by commission members?
President, I'll move that we approve second reading of 1561.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. Mr. Jackson? Mr. Altman?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries. I think we can get in the HR hiring journal before our next public hearing, so Mrs. Nominick.
Good evening, Mr. President, Commissioners. For the hiring journal, police officers at the top of the list. We have 3 openings right now, and we are in the interview process right now for that second interview phase. Hopefully, we can make some offers there and get that filled. Animal control officer, we opened the position a second time and just made an offer. We're in the background. Actually, that one is completed, so that person will be starting soon. We had a senior sanitation operator position, an internal position that opened up, and it was filled internally. Street maintenance operator, kind of scared to say this, but we did fill all 3 positions, so street department is fully staffed at this time. Chief wastewater plant operator, we've been struggling to fill that position, as you know. We've opened it a couple times. We did a second interview recently, and that person did decline the offer. So we're revisiting the job description and trying to decide what we want to do with that. And probably we'll rewrite the job description a bit and get that back opened. We have one water utility operator position. We had very few applicants apply, so we reopened the position, and we'll be interviewing in a couple weeks for that. Administrative assistant for engineering, we just filled that position. We had a good number of applicants for that, and that person has already started working for us. Deputy City Administrator for Finance and Administrative Services, we had 18 applicants for that position, and we will be starting the interview process real soon for that. Museum Assistant has been filled, and that person is on board and is working for us already. Mechanic, we've been struggling a little bit with that position, just not getting any applications. So we are reviewing that job description as well, and are going to rewrite that as more of a lube tech type position to assist the mechanic. Senior property appraiser, that was an internal position and was obviously filled internally. We also had a communication specialist internal opening. That position is actually just in the second interview phase right now. Custodian, we are looking for a custodian for our library museum, and we are going to start interviews this week for that position. And then library assistant, those are part-time limited hour positions, and we're still looking to fill a couple of those. Any questions?
Any comments or questions? Okay, well, this was one of your more encouraging reports.
Yeah, it was. It's getting shorter.
Yeah. You actually have more positions filled, so very good.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Well, we're right on time. It's 5 o'clock, and we have a timetable agenda item at 5 o'clock, a public hearing for the 2015 budget. And Mr. Colling, is there anything you'd like to say in the way of introduction?
I don't believe so, Mr. President. The budget is more Mr. Kessel's bailiwick than mine. I know he has been working hard on it and wishes he could be here to present some of his the changes that have occurred within the budget. But other than that, I don't believe I have any other comments.
All right, well, at this time then, we're going to declare the public hearing open, and anyone who wishes to comment regarding the 2015 budget may do so. Just come to the podium, state your name, and we'll hear your comments. Anyone from the public? There's no one from the public that wishes to comment, so we're going to declare the public hearing closed. And I would invite comments from commissioners. I know Mr. Kessel sent out an email last week, late last week, where he attached the current budget to it, plus he had some introductory remarks he made in the email. So, any comments by commissioners? Well, if not, I have some comments. I know the budget process this year has been more difficult because we don't have a chief financial officer, and so Mr. Kessel has been trying to do 2 jobs during the budget season, and it's challenging for him and for us. And I think we probably have had the least amount of financial information at any time during our careers as city commissioners. I know I've been here 14 years, and this is the least amount of information we've had. Not complaining. I mean, that's just the way it is when we're short-staffed. I did go through the revenue side, and I have some concerns about the revenue assumptions that have been made. And Mr. Colleen, if you know the answers to these as I go along, feel free to jump in. But it appears to me on the line item called alcoholic beverages, where we get our annual license revenue, it looks to me like Mr. Kessel has assumed at least that we would be selling 1 additional liquor license during 2015. Is that the case? Okay. And then on the building permit side, it appears to me that we're assuming revenue next year of $1.5 million, and I think our best year was 2012, which was $1.25 million. And, you know, I think we're all fairly optimistic that next year, as we're getting more and more infrastructure in the ground this year, that next year will be a fairly big year, maybe on the order of 2012. Mr. Cretan, do you have any concerns that the $1.5 million might be a little bit of a stretch?
Mr. President, Commissioners, I had provided some additional information when we first got some of the initial projections for the budget. And we knew that we had a shortfall of, I think, about $2 million. I went through our building permit totals from 2000 to 2014, looked at the totals. I thought the figure on 2012 was closer to 1.4. I could be wrong. But nevertheless, based upon the potential revenue sources that I see for 2015. As I've talked about before, we've had that pent-up demand over this year and last year due to our infrastructure, the lack of capability or capacity in order to fund that. And in the natural that you would have for each year, I feel very confident that the 1.5 is one that we could achieve. It's not a far-stretched figure at all. I think probably the big figure, the figures that I'm looking at would be a significant amount of our revenue source would come from apartments. We have a lot of apartments that are placed on hold because of capacity issues that will be relieved next year. Plus, we've already entitled Dickinson Hills, Westridge, Westridge 2, and Pinecrest is coming through with their Mylar as we speak. So I anticipate those 3 major commercial developments to move forward. And as we all know, commercial development is a high revenue source. So I feel that based upon that, our commercial revenues will significantly increase next year. I mean, the demand is there, and they're moving forward with that. So I felt comfortable providing a figure of 1.5 million. I know that would be a record year, but I'm anticipating that 2015 will be our record year.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Cretan. Then, Mr. Kubas, you may know the answer to this, but we have what appears to me to be a new line item called engineering fees, and we have $206,000 budgeted for next year. I guess one, is it a new line item, or is it revenue that we've reclassified from someplace else?
In the revenue column,
In the revenue column? Mhm.
what we have in place now is a procedure where the developers reimburse the city for costs incurred for engineering review. And so while it shows up as revenue, that it's more a revolving fund that we're paying out money for outside consulting firms to do reviews and inspections, but in turn are getting reimbursed. So the revenue is probably offset by another bill.
Okay. So it's just the same, it's legit then, and that's what it's for. Okay. Then, if you'll notice, the transfers from our enterprise funds have increased slightly for stormwater and solid waste, but the water fund will have an increase coming from the enterprise funds into the general fund of, in round numbers, about $300,000. I suspect that's based on some increased rates and increased usage, probably more due to the refinery than anything. And does that sound reasonable?
President Johnson, if you're on the water revenue side, we put the reuse water in the wastewater plant revenue side, I believe. So the water, potable water revenue would...
They're one and the same. The enterprise fund, the water and the wastewater are combined into one. And he's taken 10%, I think, of the gross revenues. It's $1,245,000 transfer into the general fund, and that's about $300,000 more than what we budgeted for 2014. So it's a pretty significant.
That probably
increase.
is. I guess
Yeah.
I look at it as two, I use the two separate funds.
Yeah.
I know you like to combine them, but I look at the two separate ones. So if you combine them, then it probably does include the
Yeah.
reuse water and the DPR,
There.
because we are losing those sales in the water side.
Yeah.
That'll probably go to the reuse side.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess I hope the number's right, but I'm a little concerned that that might be an optimistic assumption on the transfer.
We did not, we really lowered our water sales, and I think we only put, I think less than $500,000 or $250,000, I believe, for our reuse sales, other than the DPR, which the agreement is 200 gallons per minute. And I think that's what we plugged in, was the 200 GPM, but I can sure review that.
Yeah. And I know we have actually 3 more weeks before we act on the budget, because we have an extra Monday in here. So he'll have a chance to address some of these concerns. Oil impact funds, current year we're in, we're transferring 1.38 or nearly $1.4 million in oil impact funds into the general fund. He has budgeted now $2 million into the general fund, so that's a fairly significant increase of oil impact money going to the general fund. And then historically, we've used a portion of our half-cent sales tax to help fund the general fund and hold down property taxes. In the current year we're in round numbers, that's about $900,000. To balance the budget, he's assumed a $2 million transfer. So when I think about these assumptions, here's my concerns. I'm concerned that some of our revenues might be overstated, and some are not sustainable. They're pretty volatile, and I would use the building permit fees. I mean, I think Mr. Catan makes a good point when he says next year they could be $1.5 million, but when you look at the things our general fund is funding, there are things that are expected to be funded year after year after year. And if we have $1.5 million in building permit revenue one year and $900,000 the next, and you have that kind of volatility, which if you look historically, this has been pretty volatile. I'm concerned about that. The other thing is we're not going to sell a liquor license every year. And so we're, in a sense, using that revenue to sustain ongoing operations. And then I think the sales tax transfer is risky. Sales tax revenue can be very volatile. It's, in our situation, it's generally been on the rise, but as economies fluctuate and go up and down, so do sales tax revenue. Plus, if we do get in a downswing, we've pledged our sales tax revenue for some of our bond money, I believe, this half-cent sales tax. So I just sum this up and say I'm not sure we have adequate sustainable revenues to support all the new staff positions in this budget, and he listed them in his email to us of last week of what he's kept in the budget. So I'm going to stop right there and let you as fellow commissioners kind of respond to what I've said. If you don't share these concerns or do share them, what are your feelings?
Mr. President, one of my concerns is the amount of new employees that we were going to take on. I think in the budget meeting, we were looking at numbers as taking on an additional 4. So I believe we're looking at additional 14 in this.
They've got 15 staff positions. Not all of them are in the general fund, but I think most of them are.
You got enterprise funds.
Yeah.
Can pay for themselves and so on. If it's a concern, I think that's where we need to take a look at, because as you mentioned, once we hire them, it becomes an annual expense for us, so to speak. And I know we talked about, getting up to speed with our employees as far as numbers go, but we also talked about when those numbers start dropping as far as the revenue and so on, that there comes a time we got to look at letting employees go. I don't know how everyone feels on that. I feel a little uncomfortable with it if we're going to put it on 14, 15. I'd like to see a more conservative amount of employees being added.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Steiner. Anyone else care to comment?
Well, I think the concerns are legitimate. As far as, I'm not sure I ever see us needing to let employees go. I think we have enough attrition happening that if we're monitoring things correctly and planning correctly, that attrition will take care of that if the need ever comes. But the issue you bring up is real. And something's going to have to give. The phone calls that I get from our citizens are that we need more services. Those are the phone calls I get, whether it's street or police or whatever it may be. Those are the phone calls I get. So, we've never raised property taxes, and I wouldn't propose now that we do. But the public's got to understand that something has to give. I suspect that in some cases we could use more staff than we've got in the budget now. I know we can in some places. But I think that that is a big red flag to see revenue that may not be with us tomorrow funding our general fund budget.
I keep spreadsheets updated on our projections for expenditures out of our sales tax funds. And unless he's made some other assumptions, in the half-cent sales tax fund, we're assuming we had budgeted a $3.7 million transfer to the building fund towards the public works building this year. And then in 2015 and 2016, we were planning to transfer $3 million each year out of this fund to the Public Safety Center. If we also do a $2 million transfer to the general fund, our half-cent sales tax fund will go slightly negative, $129,000 in 2015. And if we do the same $2 million in 2016, which I think once you start down this path, that's where you're going, because you're trying to sustain the employee base and the commitments you've taken on. We will then drive that to a deficit of $1 million in 2016, and then in 2017 it should start to recover. So like I said, I think it's kind of risky to, at least at this stage of our development, to be thinking about expanding the subsidy from the half-cent sales tax to the general fund by that amount.
I would think with the sales tax that we have to look at a percentage of it as opposed to dollar figures.
That's typically what we've been doing, and if we did it by percentage again, it would be closer to $1 million than $2 million. Now, you have to ask yourself, what is the right amount of money to transfer from oil impact dollars to the general fund? And I don't know if I know the answer to that. I mean, right now, like I said, this year it was $1.38 million. He's assumed next year it would be $2 million. But if we were to fund all of these positions, I think you're looking at between $3 and $4 million coming from the oil impact fund and keeping the half-cent sales tax at its more traditional level of about $1 million.
Mr. President, I would like to see the 15 employees or positions, I should say, in the salary that he has attached to him and the expenses and so on. And then I would like Mr. Kessel to rank them. Because I believe during in the budget meeting we were talking about maybe 4 employees, but and I thought it was 1.5 we were talking about moving from the fund to the general fund. Now, I don't know if he was assuming the 15 employees would take up to 1.5, but now you're saying 2 million. So I think we need some clarification on those numbers.
Well, and he was at our budget meeting, he was dealing with some pretty rough numbers, and I forget how many spreadsheets he has here that are not spreadsheets he created, that many of them were interlinked, and so it was really hard to tell how accurate our numbers were. I think he has pretty accurate numbers now. Mrs. Fisher is kind enough to come back and spend quite a bit of time with him and help him with the spreadsheets. So I suspect the numbers are, they're accurate. But
Right.
To get the budget to balance, get the general fund to balance, he's had to rely on, I think, some optimistic revenues and then significant transfer from sales tax. And Mr. Steiner, I don't remember for certain, but I think the original request that he was dealing with from the department head managers, I think it was an increase of 35,
37.
37
37 was the number.
employees. You know, so he's whittled that down to 15. But, you know, there's a lot of other costs that go up. There's equipment costs and things like that too. So, plus, you know, we're having a general wage and salary increase. So that, you know, you get some new revenues, but a lot of the ongoing things eat up the new revenues, and so the new positions are, almost have to be funded by really new dollars, you know.
Do we know what the number of employees that go into the, that he has for the general fund here and
Well,
the ones that?
looking at his email, he has 2 facility operators. Are those enterprise fund positions, or they are? They're buildings and
They're
grounds?
buildings and grounds.
Okay. So I think everything, these chief engineering technician, is that general fund? Probably. That's your shop, Craig?
That would be, I'm not sure if that's
Yeah.
general fund or not.
Yeah, it's general fund
Mr.
unless.
Johnson, I believe they're all general fund.
Okay. So there are probably some other positions, but they're in the enterprise funds and in their budget. Or no enterprise fund increases?
I think we had one for water, but I don't think that was put in there, so.
Okay,
We
so
had
they're all-
street, but it was, solid waste and water did not have any.
Okay, so this is, all our new positions are general fund positions then? Okay. Well, you know, I don't know what everybody's average salary and benefits and stuff are, but if you got 15, it's probably at least $60,000 per person or more, so.
You know, I know we've had to project our property tax revenue for 2015. Can we find a good way to do that for the 2 and 3 years beyond? In other words, with the things we know about, we keep talking about the large commercial entities that are going to come on the tax rolls, all the apartment buildings. I assume everything that's being built is built into that revenue budget for property tax for 15?
I don't know, Mr. Colling, can you comment on that?
I believe it is, Commissioner Jackson. The valuation date is February 1st. So anything that is under construction right now will be valued as of February 1st. Some of those structures will be open and operating, some will not. But I would guess that most of the ongoing construction now won't be captured from a property tax perspective until 2016.
And I guess what I'm getting at is, you know, is there a chance going out in 16 and 17 that some of that property tax revenue could replace the sales tax revenue?
I think the answer to that is yes, but it's probably in, you know, along the lines of a couple $100,000
Yeah,
a year.
that's all it is.
I mean, you know, I don't want to make it sound like a couple $100,000 is a lot of money, but, you know, it might offset 20% or so of the sales
It's
tax.
not
And yeah, and how I come up with the 200,000, if we're going up about $400,000 right now, you know, a 50% increase would be pretty substantial if we went up with new revenues of 600,000. So, you know, the thing is, residential rooftops don't bring as much property tax revenue to a city. You need the commercial structures and the industrial structures to really bring it. And right now, we're, of course, getting a lot of residential. So I think we have to probably look at a combination of a couple of things. Like I said, I'm reluctant to agree to transferring that much sales tax money. I think we have to consider transferring more oil impact money, which means maybe less money for some capital projects. And maybe deferring some of these positions, try to defer them back into 2015 or 16. But I think we need to give Mr. Kessel some direction from this meeting, because if we get into the meeting 3 weeks from now and actually try to write a budget in a session like this, we'll set a record for length of meeting. So we need to give him some direction, so he has, 3 weeks to work on this.
Well, the direction would be general direction, so
Yes.
that staff can go back and prioritize positions and work from there, I would assume.
Well, we have 15 staff positions. If we said, we'd accept 10 or 11. And that we would accept, in the range of $1 million transfer from the sales tax fund, and the balance has to come from oil impact funds, which is, like I said, probably gets you up in the $3 million range transfer. That's $6 million a biennium. And I think you can make a strong argument that, it's not just our physical infrastructure that's being impacted by oil. It's certainly the workload on those charged with monitoring construction, those charged with the public safety, their workloads have gone up. So, like I said, I don't know what the right number is to transfer. What do you think?
I would like to see the numbers based on 5 employees, 10 employees, and we know where the 15 is at.
So give us some.
I think that's a start.
Give us some options, show us like an increase of 5, which 5 they'd be, an increase of 10, which 10 they'd be, that type of thing. Couple of options.
And I think he knows the importance of which employees that we should have.
How do you feel about the sales tax transfer? Were you comfortable with the $2 million, or?
It's a crystal ball.
Yeah, and that's a hard one to determine because we have so many new commercial structures coming online that are going to be contributing to the sales tax, but it's hard to factor in what that increase will be based on their production and their revenue. So it's a hard one. It should increase, as you drive around and you see more and more shopping opportunities coming on board. You can see the buildings being built. Obviously, they're going to generate more sales tax revenue. We just don't. It's a hard one to pinpoint.
Well, and if in the past, we've used a percentage as a guideline, so.
We've been off, but conservatively off. We've been off in a good way.
Yeah. But if you do get an increase, you do increase the amount of sales tax that goes here.
Mm-hmm.
But, you think about it, a 10% gain is a really good year. That's then in the range of only $100,000. He jumped at $1 million.
Mm-hmm.
No, I think while we're talking about sales tax, I think there's some good news here. I think his revenue projections for 2015 sales tax are too conservative, and Mr. Colleen, I'll give you these numbers to take back to him. I think 2015, the 1% could be about 8.4 million. The 0.5%, of course, would be half that, 4.2 million. The hospitality tax could be about 1.2, and the occupancy tax around $700,000. I think those are higher than what he's assumed. He's been pretty conservative, but well, we'll have to move on then. So, Mr. Colling, maybe you can communicate to him, show us a budget with the assumptions with 12 new employees, 10 new employees, and 5 new employees. And unless one of my fellow commissioners disagrees, then I would say show a transfer of $1 million from the sales tax and the balance from oil impact funds to get his budget, the general fund, to balance. I didn't see the street fund, but I did see where he's transferring $4 million out of the 1% sales tax to the street fund and to do street projects. Is that adequate for next year?
I believe so. We're looking at quite a few mill and overlay that the next year, if you'll notice too on our pavement management plan, it looks like we'd probably need more. But I think next year on mill and overlay, it would be sufficient. We are looking at trying to start the concrete replacement, the little SIDs again next year. I think we have that listed. I hope it's sufficient.
Well, I think there's a little more money in that fund if, you know, if we had the capacity and the need to do some other projects, that there might be a little more monies we can work with there.
We can always find places to spend it on streets.
Yeah, and I guess I would chime in here. I don't think during budget time, maybe is the time to talk about this, but sometime outside of our budget period, we need to really look at a better long-term plan for street maintenance, just because the dollars aren't keeping up. I don't know what the answer is, but that'll be a good sum of money for next year. But looking at the next 10 years, I think we have a lot of street work to do in this town.
Well, I agree, and I don't know if you saw any of the numbers, the rough numbers from the pavement management plan.
Haven't seen it, no.
It looks like, to get going, we looked at about a lot of mill and overlay next year, but from there on, projected just to get streets into a pavement condition index that is satisfactory, is about $5 million a year, and that was about a 5-year period to try to get streets up to that level. And I think after the chip seal this year, we'll get a start, and then some mill and overlay next year, and trying to get on of course, that depends on how much more roads we annex and how much we expand, and that's the difficulty. We keep expanding, and then it's hard to keep up with what we have. But I do appreciate that. I would like to meet with maybe you, and we could talk about the 5-year plan.
It's going to catch up with us. It's going to sneak up on us.
Right.
Is what's going to happen.
Well, there's no objections, then that's our direction to Mr. Kessel. And
Yes.
Mr. Colling, you think you got it?
I think so, Mr. President. I will talk with him tomorrow.
Okay. Well, then, we're going to move along. I apologize to the groups in the audience that have timetables. We made you a little late, but our next item is to hear a presentation by Superintendent of Schools, Doug Sullivan, Dr. Sullivan, and he's going to speak on the state of the schools. So, welcome to the commission meeting.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the commission. We were here last year and made a similar presentation to the commission members about the school district. And listening to the discussion that you just had about your budget and infrastructure, I can see that the issues are very similar between the two entities. And so I have some brief information to present to the commission tonight. Just before I get started, I would like to let you know that I have with me the Assistant Superintendent, Vince Reap, and the President of the School Board, Chris Fair, in case there are questions for them also at the conclusion of the presentation. So how do I work this? Or do I? Oops. There we go. The first slide, as you can see, are the school board members, and you can see that the photography, I need some practice in taking pictures. But we have a very experienced school board member, particularly with the school board president, Chris Fair, and board member Leslie Ross. They've both been on for an extended period of time, and two new school board members standing in the back. And so these are the school board members. This is the enrollment in the Dickinson Public Schools at this time. You can see in September 12, we were at 2868. September 13, 3175. And this September, 3448. 3448 represents an increase of 273 students from last year, approximately 8.6%. 3448 is a new record for the Dickinson Public Schools. It beats the record from 1985 by 88 students. And while the pace has slowed down from last year, we're still seeing students trickle in at this time. And so that number will undoubtedly change a little bit. This was our enrollment, as I just pointed out. The largest enrollment in the school district's history, 8.6%. When comparing this year's enrollment to 2 years ago, we're up by 580 students, or approximately a 20% increase. And these are the current increases by grade level: K6, 167 students, Hagen, 43, and DHS 63. DHS is back up to approximately 900 students. Hagen by itself is approximately 500 students. You can see that this was the information that's in the brochure that I handed out to you, was our projected enrollment increase from fall of 2013 to fall of 2017 of 25%. We beat the number in the fall of 2014 by 61 students. We had projected, let me find it here. Well, we projected a number that was 61 students lower, so we're already on pace to beat these projections of 25% increase for 2017. And if listening to the discussion that the commission had earlier about building permits for next year, possibly beating the record year of 2012, keep in mind that this year our enrollment increase was approximately 8.6%. 2012 we increased by about a little over 12%. And so that causes us a little bit of heartburn, hearing that you might have more building permits being sold. At Hagen Junior High, you can see that the maximum capacity will be exceeded in 2016. Actually, we would suggest that we're already exceeding the maximum capacity, because we have 21 class periods of students who are currently walking across the street from Hagen to take classes at Berg. Next year, that's going to have to change, because we're going to need more classrooms at Berg for the 6th grade students. And so that's going to put a little bit more pressure on the Hagen building. Elementary schools will exceed their ideal capacity by 2017. and Hagan Junior High cannot be cost-effectively reconfigured to serve as a modern middle school. So what is the school district proposing to do? The school board is proposing on October 7th a bond referendum for $65 million to the community of Dickinson to construct a new middle school which would serve students in grades 6 through 8 for between 960 and 1,200 students. The plan at this time is to construct a facility for 960 students and make it easily expandable to serve 1,200 students. So just some financial facts about the school district and how the school district is positioned to take on this responsibility. Of the 13 largest districts in North Dakota, Dickinson ranks 11th in cost per pupil and 13th in the number of mills that we levy. How long would it take to pay off the bond? Would be 20 years. What will it cost to wait? Well, we all know what the cost of construction is doing in our community. Some people estimate it's increasing by 10 to 12% annually. I don't have a figure, an exact figure for what the increase is, but if we delay taking care of the middle school needs, there's no doubt that the facility will become more expensive. So how would it impact taxes in the city of Dickinson? Based on 2013 tax year data, which was the last complete year that we had, it would result in an approximate $21 per month increase on a house assessed at $187,600. People need to understand that this is not the market value for the house. This is not what the house is worth to be sold on the open market. This is the assessed value of the home according to the city of Dickinson. We've had this question quite often because there was discussion about building a new high school, repurposing Dickinson High School into a middle school. The primary reason we cannot do that is the school district does not have the bonding capacity to build a new high school and remodel Dickinson High School. I would suggest that we probably do not have the bonding capacity to build a brand new high school by itself, given the construction costs in our community at this time. And so what is our plan? As I said, to build the middle school, and as soon as that process is underway, we will begin to take a look at the issues at the elementary and middle school will be addressed by building a new middle school, and the district will begin to focus on the high school, because if the bond request is approved on October 7th, it will take approximately 2.5 years to finish this project, and it would be scheduled to be brought online in the fall of 2017. We would take those 2 years to continue to address and take a look at the needs in the high school. And please keep in mind that Dickinson High School at 900 students has room to grow still. In the middle school and the elementary buildings, we are essentially out of room. We're addressing the most immediate needs first. The population bubble that we have in our school district is in the lower grades. If you were to see the enrollment numbers in the Dickinson Public Schools, and just to give you a little perspective, last year we graduated approximately 175 seniors out of Dickinson High School. This year our kindergarten class is 339 students, almost double of what we graduated from Dickinson High last year. The challenges we have to face right now are in grades K to 8. 34 out of 78 of our elementary classrooms are currently over the board's recommended class size. We have 12 out of 15 kindergarten classes that are over the school board's recommended class size. Some kindergarten classes have 26 students in them, which is large for what the community expects and what the school board expects. 10 out of 12 of our third grade classrooms are over the school board's recommended class size. Some of those classes have 25 and 26 students in them also, which is more than we would like to see. So the challenges we face, as it says there, are in the elementary and middle school, and the high school has room to accommodate future growth. A yes vote means that we would begin to work on a 960 student middle school that could be expanded to 1,200 students. It would be a state-of-the-art learning environment, and we would have adequate on-site space to meet all of the needs for the 6 through 8 middle school students in the facility. A no vote means that there will be another bond request in the near future. Simply stated, with these class sizes we have 339 kindergarten students, approximately 300 second grade students, 284 300 first grade, 284 second, 300 third grade. When those students get to the middle school, we're talking 600 students in Hagen by itself. Hagen simply cannot accommodate that number of students. We will have, I guarantee, that these class sizes I've just explained will become exacerbated. We will have more overcrowded classrooms, and they will be larger than the numbers that I presented tonight. We will have less equity in terms of class size in our buildings. We will have to take a look at some type of alternative schedule, whether that's a different type of calendar for the day or for the school year. And it's very likely that there would be decreased elective class offerings because some of the classes that we're offering for electives may have to be eliminated so that we have room for the required courses that students must take as part of our curriculum. So absentee voting is available, and this is the information. Obviously, you contact Kay Haig at Stark County, and absentee voting is only available in Stark County. There is no absentee voting for the Dunn County residents. Early voting is available only in Stark County. This will happen the week before the October 7th election, Monday through Thursday from 8 to 5, Friday from 8 to noon. There's no early voting available in Dunn County. And this is the election day. Those are the polling places: Lincoln, Jefferson, Prairie Rose, Heart River in Stark County, and the Dunn County Courthouse. And I'd like to encourage you all to please remember to vote on October 7th, or utilize the absentee process or the early voting process to cast your ballot in this election. And Mr. President, that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Sullivan. I think it's, on behalf of my commissioners, I think it's safe to say we feel like we've got an easier job than your board members. So, a question I have, I know you and Assistant Superintendent Reep stay on top of the new birth numbers, and that you have a rough formula that projects, you know, the kindergarten class, 5 years from the date of those new births. Through my sources, I'm hearing that new births in this community are running somewhere between an annual rate right now between 600 and 700. Is that consistent with your information?
Now, Mr. President, if I may, I would like to have the Assistant Superintendent to address that question. But before he does, I just want to make one additional comment that I forgot to make during the presentation. If the middle school is approved, as I said, we will begin discussing how to address the needs at the high school. The school board will also begin discussing how Hagen building will be repurposed, because it still has utility for the school district. And when the middle school would be brought online in the fall of 2017, Berg would be repurposed to a K-5 school, which would give us some flexibility in our K-5 arena, we're hoping. So, if I could.
President Johnson, members of the commission, you're correct. We do track the St. Joe's Hospital births religiously. We've done that for 15, 20 years, and we're seeing that spike as we visit with those officials on live births. The new data that we're also collecting, of course, is Sanford's clinic, as they have those services there. And our quarters, we go by calendar year, but in visiting with Reed at St. Joseph's, they're setting records for their the first 2 months of their first quarter. And so the levels are fairly stable for the next 2 years, but when these births come 5 years for kindergarten, we're looking at class sizes of nearly 500.
That's what the new births would indicate.
Correct.
And Dr. Sullivan said this year's class is
339.
339.
Right, so we'll have at least 100 more students in kindergarten, probably 150, if those trends and statistics continue at that rate.
In 5 years from now.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Other comments or questions here?
Mr. President, I just have a question for Dr. Sullivan. October 7th is a Tuesday. I noticed that the vast majority of the polling booths were at the schools themselves. Will school be taking place during those days, or will that be a holiday for the students?
Hey, Mr. President. Mr. Corton, yes, school will be in session during those days.
Other comments or questions?
Does it matter which school you vote at?
Mr. Altman, no, does not matter.
Can you vote at every school? That does matter, huh?
You're the mayor.
Oh,
You can pretty much do what you want.
I just, one school. Okay. Well, thank you, and again, we apologize for running a little late, but great information, and hopefully the community's is going to support the effort here.
Okay, thank you, Mr. President, Commissioners.
All right, we have one more timetable agenda item, and that is to hear from Rayanne Keelan, who is going to be talking about childcare. So, Ms. Keelan.
Thank you. I hope I'm bringing a little bit of good news. I know, don't let it scare you. A couple of weeks ago, I was reading the Dickinson Press, and I was avidly reading the commission minutes, and there was some discussion about the concern about childcare and one of the issues in our community that we're all facing. About a year ago, the Strom Center undertook a project with the Vision West Consortium to try to address a solution to try to increase childcare available in our communities in western North Dakota, kind of taking on a statewide effort at this point. But I want to just tell you a little bit about what we're doing, because I think, as I emailed President Johnson, I said, you know, I think it's important that you know what's going on so that you can be well informed, and I always like to get before the camera, you know, and make sure that I got my Channel 19 moments up to date. Renee Townsend, who's with the Small Business Development Center here in Dickinson, is with me tonight. I'm just going to introduce this a little bit, and then I'm going to let Renee take over and talk about the portal that's been developed. We've handed out to you a couple of different things. One of them is the Vision West summary plan for the region that articulates the issues that they've identified in the region by the citizens of the region, one of them being, of course, child care, and you can read the rest, housing, infrastructure, all those things that are just going to shock you, I'm sure. Attached to that is the final report that went to Vision West that talks about the journey that's been taken to develop this portal and what our goals are. And then attached to that are posters that we invite you to put up in wherever you can, share in the community. We're hoping to inundate western North Dakota with "We Want You" posters to encourage people to look at child care as a profession that might suit their needs and help address the needs of the children in our community that really are struggling with places to go. Our focus has been western North Dakota, of course, but we're finding that this portal that we've developed, which is intended to be a simple invitation to those that are interested in providing childcare in our communities, can easily find the simple steps that they would undertake to become licensed or unlicensed to provide childcare in our community. So I'm going to let Renee take it over and talk a little bit more about it, and then we'll be open for questions.
Hi. One of the things when I got this project was where to find how to become a child care provider. What I found was, you know, I'd Google it, and that sent me in all different directions. And because Rayanne's daughter actually works at the Stark County Social Services, she gave me that first lead. But not everybody is as fortunate as I to have the contact. So this, I'm nervous. So this portal is to make it easy for the child care providers or individuals who want to become child care providers to get the information that they need. Thank you. So at the bottom of each one of these is an invitation to individuals who are looking to become child care providers. It gives a little encouragement, and then this call to action to become a provider. And what this leads them to is the county licensing information. And right now, it's only on this side, but the North Dakota Small Business Development Center is working on the information for the eastern part of the state. So we're just going to look at the Stark County page to see what people are, the kind of information that they're getting when they come to this website. So one of the things that I found when I was doing my research is it wasn't very clear who to talk to when you wanted to become a child care provider. What I found was really you just need to go to the social service agent, and that's your first step. In fact, you can't become licensed as a child care provider unless you go through them. And it wasn't really clear for myself, and I imagine people who are coming out of the state or even people who are in the state, how to become a child care provider. So the first bit of information is where they go to, and it's divided by individual counties. At the bottom of each one of these, and each one of the pages are the same, other than the information, go to the provider and who to contact. There are four different entities that they need to contact in order to become a provider once they go through social services. And the social services has this information for them also. But they need to be first aid CPR certified. They'll need a fire inspection for their facility. They may need zoning approval depending on what county or even city they're in. And they need a health inspection depending on what type of child care provider they want to be. One of the other things that I found as I was researching is people thought that it was very difficult to become a child care provider. What I found was that it was very straightforward. The key is getting to the right people, and that's the social services. The forms, people thought there were a lot of forms to, people thought there were a lot of forms to go through. What I did was put them all in one, put them in packets that were easy for the providers to access depending on what kind of child care provider they wanted to become. And then again, the call to action, which is on every page, pretty much every page, so that they know, it leads them to that county page so that they can get to who they need to go. That's about it. I welcome you to visit the website, browse around, click on the links, encourage individuals who want to become child care providers to visit the page, the website. Anything you want to know?
We also invite you to link this to the City of Dickinson website. And if you have any other websites or website people that might want to link this, our goal with this project was to make it easier for people to enter the market. We're finding that we have less and, as you know, we have less and less child care spots available. There's a lot of effort that's being put into it, but what we found out is that it's holy cow complicated if you're trying to do this. We ask that you help get the word out, that you encourage people to consider childcare as a profession that might suit their lifestyle. Oftentimes, we have people looking for childcare. If they're asked if they would consider providing it, is a big step. We don't have all the solutions, but what we do have is a simple way for them to be able to get help, get through the process, be encouraged, and not be frustrated by a whole lot of information that makes it way more complicated. And so our goal tonight was just to inform you, because I think that it's very overwhelming. I sit and listen to you talk about the budget. I listen to Dr. Sullivan talk about the school. I live in this community, and I know how overwhelming our issues are, and we wanted to bring you just a moment of maybe hope that there are people out there doing things to try to help behind the scenes, and also by getting before the cameras is to maybe speak to that person that's up at 2 o'clock in the morning pacing, that's watching Channel 19 for, a way to fall asleep, may be encouraged to jump in and say, oh, gee, I want to check that out and try to do something myself. So that being said, if you have any questions for Renee or I, we're happy to entertain them. If you want to follow up later, whatever, but thank you for giving us the time to present and tell you what we're doing to help out.
Well, thank you, Renee and Rayanne. So if someone is interested in becoming a child care provider, and, they can go to this portal and get their information, but even if they need a little more help, can they contact you at the Strom Center, and you'll help them some too?
Absolutely, absolutely. We've been very successful this year with helping some of our providers get at the child care grants that came out through the legislature, which, we've probably helped put about 100 new kids into child care in the community through helping get at those grants and helping them get their businesses capitalized and their business plan in place. But ultimately, you're right. If you go to the website, it'll walk you through who to call in every county. It'll give you all the forms. It makes it easy and palatable so it's not so overwhelming and frighten you away. And our number's in there so that you can easily find us, and we're more than happy to help walk anybody through the process. Our services at the SBDC are free, so that's also encouraging.
Well, any comments or questions here?
Rand, do you have any numbers? Do you know how many kids are in daycare in Dickinson, and what's the unmet demand? Do you have any feel for that?
A lot.
Yeah.
No, I hate to say it, I didn't come prepared with that. I know that the unmet needs are probably 40 to 50% of the children that need child care are not being met. That was about 2 years ago. I know that the legislature has invested a lot of money trying to encourage an increase in those spots, and what we're finding is a decrease in those spots. A lot of the challenges come back to the same things that a lot of our small businesses are facing, the ability to keep staff, afford staff, capitalization, whatever. But I know that about 1 in 3 children right now are not able to get into childcare. I can get those numbers for you and would be happy to if it'd be helpful.
Well, I'm thinking about the numbers we heard tonight about births, record births, and the other numbers that go with it, and it would seem, even looking at the business side of this, that this is a good opportunity for a number of people.
It absolutely is, and I think that we forget that. I think that we forget how important it is and what a quality experience it could be for the right person to enter into that profession. The posters that we created, we gave you a variety so they weren't all boring, and it was always like, oh, another new one, how exciting. But we really wanted to show a variety of faces and opportunities of being self-employed, of having that quality time. If you're built for raising kids, that's part of it, but you can work at home, you can kind of set your own future. You can have all and enjoy all the things that a lot of small business owners enjoy. And there's a lot of supports out there for you. You're not alone in the journey. The licensing people, although she's my daughter, she's relatively nice and helpful. We're there to help you. There's different programs that come out. The Bank of North Dakota has the Flex Pace program to help buy down your interest if you have to capitalize. There's just a ton of people, education, resources, whatever. So I think that people that are looking at this as an option should really recognize that they're not alone in this journey.
Well, thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you for giving us the time. Have a good rest of the meeting.
Thank you.
And put those posters up all over town.
Yes, ma'am. Okay. I think we're down to 4F, the 40th Street report by Mr. Coley.
Mr. President, Commissioners, just wanted to give you a little update with respect to 40th Street and the construction project that is planned up there. As you may recall, we did, or the Commission did, adopt a resolution establishing a water and sewer special improvement district for 40th Street, and we had intended to bid that project out as soon as right-of-way was acquired. One of the things that makes this project time sensitive is there is a building, a gas station truck stop that is under construction on 40th Street that does not have water and sewer service right now. They are anticipating opening that business within, I think, at the end of October, by the 31st of October. So we've had a couple of meetings among staff and with the property owner to figure out the best way forward, and have come up with a couple of options. It looks as though we will not have all of the right-of-way for 40th Street in time to bid the project out in full. However, we do have enough right-of-way that has been granted in order to construct water and sewer lines from 2nd Avenue East to the property owner that needs service here to the hub truck stop. We can go forward and bid that project out. KLJ has put together a bid package for us. If the Commission wants to move ahead with that, we can do so as soon as possible. We would need to bid it out for 2 weeks in order to satisfy the special assessment statute, and then hopefully have that project, at least the water and sewer lines, completed by the end of October. One of the complicating factors with going that route is we are bidding the project out at the end of September, which is not the most advantageous time to bid construction out. However, we did have KLJ make contact with a couple of contractors just to see whether or not there would be interest or whether they thought we would have a difficult bidding environment. Did get some indication that there would be contractors out there that would bid the project, notwithstanding the late date that we have. Anticipated cost for this section of water and sewer line is just over $1 million. And that only takes care of a portion of the water and sewer. There is some water and sewer installation that will still need to go west of 2nd Avenue East in order to connect up with the remainder of the city system. We anticipate that would go in with the remainder of the construction of 40th Street with the road and the stormwater. So I think that's option one for us. Option two is that the contractor, the property owner rather, has a civil design to construct water and sewer lines on its own. These would be temporary service lines that would go in from 2nd Avenue East and go to the property boundary where the hub will be located. That construction would happen within the 40th Street right-of-way, but these would be temporary service lines. And once 40th Street goes through in full, is constructed in full, then we would require the property owner to abandon those service lines, take them out of service, and remove them from the right-of-way. Advantage of this procedure is the city doesn't have any money into the service lines then, and the property owner can contract with its own contractor and get the project done more or less on its own time frame. Disadvantage is it does occur in our right-of-way, and we will need to try to maintain service to that property when 40th Street goes through. We don't want to cut service lines or have those service lines get in the way of the other construction that is going forward or will be going forward with 40th Street. But the contractor, or the property owner rather, would be willing to construct those temporary service lines within the right-of-way at its own cost as well. We looked at a couple of other options of declaring this an emergency situation, so we wouldn't have to go to bid on it, and more or less figured that we could not do that. If we do declare an emergency situation and construct or contract for the construction of these lines without bidding, it would not allow us to special assess the cost of that back to the property owners, the benefited property owners in that instance. So we did have to rule that option out. So I think those are the options before us. Wanted to get some feedback from commissioners as to what you may be comfortable with and what direction you would like the city to go. In either case, we anticipate having contracts for the construction of 40th Street back as soon as we have the right of way and get the project constructed as soon as possible.
Thank you, Mr. Colling. Any feedback? Mr. Jackson, you're kind of a resident expert here.
You know, to say that this project has developed in an imperfect way would really be an understatement, I think. But we are where we are, and I think we should let bids on only what's necessary to service what has to be serviced this year and proceed.
So you prefer the first option that Mr. Colling introduced?
I do.
And what is your reservation with option 2? What are your concerns there?
You know, the biggest one, Mr. Colling listed 2 or 3, but the one I would put out there, I don't care if it's the city or a developer spending money on what will really be temporary service. It's just such a waste of dollars, plain and simple. And we can say, well, it's not our dollars.
It's somebody's dollars.
But it's somebody's dollars.
Right.
And it's just a waste. It's just not right, in my mind, to do that.
Anybody else? Any comments from staff?
What does the owner of the property, which option do they prefer?
We met with them earlier today, and I think one wanted to make the point to them that whatever option they may prefer, this is going to happen in city right away, and it's if the city wants to let bids for the special assessment district, then we would do it regardless of what they may prefer. I think the concern that the property owner had was with respect to the timing of when this is going to be constructed and whether or not we could get a decent bidding environment when we let the bids.
Because under option 2, they for sure have the control of making sure that everything lines up and that they open for business. If it goes out to bid, our best intention is to have everything go as planned, but anything can happen too.
Yeah, I think the real danger and the risk that we would run is if we tell the property owner not to go ahead with the temporary service connections because we're going to bid the project out, we bid it out, and for some reason we get no bids. And then we're kind of in a tough situation.
So
or that we get, there is some number that we would reject bids.
Yeah.
There's no guarantee.
Mr. President?
Mr. Kubas.
I'm sure we'll have subsequent meetings with this owner of the property that's unserviced right now. But if that's the commission's direction, is to move forward with the bid, I suppose there's nothing saying that they can't move forward concurrently with option 2 on their own, and the fallback plan could happen very, very shortly post-bid, which is going to happen, like Mr. Colling said, end of September, 1st of October. And at that point, I suppose we could enact option B. We have a draft agreement written up already about the conditions that would be placed on those service lines if they were put in our right-of-way. But right now, if that's the direction of the commission, we'll move forward with a bid as soon as possible.
Yeah, I guess I would like to see option one, just as Mr. Jackson, but I would like to leave room that if we run into stumbling blocks, that they have a plan B working simultaneously with it that they can put in place, you know. I don't want to stand in the way of them opening up either.
Yeah, absolutely. And Mr. Kubas, are you comfortable proceeding, going to bid?
I'm comfortable going to bid. I was earlier apprehensive that we wouldn't get a large pool of bidders, but like Mr. Colling said, I've had the engineering firm go out and make some preliminary contacts with contractors just to see if we have a chance here, and they got very positive responses. It's a small project that can fill out an underground contractor's season. And we do have a lot of underground contractors in town right now, so I'm feeling more comfortable now than I was this morning.
Well, I think unless Mr. Steiner feels differently, you have direction here. I think the commission prefers option one, and if you can make that happen.
Okay. All right, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay. Now we'll move to public safety, and Chief Sivak has a presentation on the recent train derailment. So Chief Sivak.
President Johnson, Commissioners, we just wanted to bring some information to you about the event that happened on the morning of September 6th, Saturday morning. This is a recap right from the Dickinson Press. It's pretty accurate, exactly what happened. 4 flatbed rail cars and a boxcar derailed that Saturday morning. The train was traveling east when it went off the tracks approximately 5:15 a.m. We got called to the scene a little after 6 o'clock. It was a low-speed event. The train wasn't traveling through town at speed. There were no injuries reported. A nearby building was slightly damaged. None of the oil or anhydrous ammonia cars surrounding the derailed flatbeds were damaged. We know that the white car right there, that's hydrochloric acid car. I'm not sure where the anhydrous cars were, quite honestly. The crash caused a natural gas leak in the building that was impacted. The immediate area, including West Dakota Oil, was evacuated as a precaution. There were no hazardous materials that were spilled. The cause of the crash is still under investigation. We don't have a definite result from Burlington Northern. This is standing on Broadway, looking north to the G.A. Sadowski bulk plant, which had a building that was impacted by this. That's their main office building right there. They've got some bulk tanks over here. This building right here is a storage building. You'll see a little bit more of that in a minute. They're above ground bulk tanks. The good news is this horizontal tank's been out of service for some time, so that tank was empty. One of these 2 vertical tanks is currently empty. There's only about 2,000 gallons of product remaining in the other one. So there wasn't a lot of fuel on site, although 2,000 gallons is still significant. There wasn't a lot of fuel on site. This is looking to the east from the crossing at 4th Avenue. Again, this is the storage building that was impacted. What I want you to get is a feel for the proximity. This building, of course, their office building and the tanks and the service truck that was there, and the elevator that's right here. Very close relationship to everything right there. This is on the north side of that storage building, showing the flat car that impacted that building right there. Now, this is a low-speed event. Take a look at the damage that even that causes, not just to the flat cars, but to the track. A little bit closer view of the impact. Inside, on one side of the wall, it doesn't look like much, really. Not as dramatic as what the exterior looks like. It's the other side of that wall. This is a gas line. This is a natural gas line running over to a heater. It's hanging right here. That gas line broke right at this elbow due to the impact. That gas was venting into the atmosphere, due partially to the construction of the building, which wasn't a real airtight building, and the damage caused by the impact that opened the building up. It really helped that situation become a non-volatile situation, as that natural gas, properties of natural gas is lighter than air. It vented to the atmosphere. It didn't pool, collect, and travel along the ground and find an ignition source as propane would have. Again, on the north side of the building, just another view looking to the east of the damage to the car and the damage to the building. How it tore up the tracks, how it tore up the railroad ties. This is looking from the G.A. Sadowski storage tank area to the crossing at 4th Avenue East. Here again, you'll see the acid car. You see this flat car that was not involved. That's that one right there. Note the relationship of the telephone pole. And you can see the first flat car that was involved. That acid car was one flat car away from being involved. That's pretty close. A little bit further down the line, these are crude oil tank cars. They weren't damaged and they weren't involved, but they were about 4 cars away from where the damage started. This is on the north side of the tracks looking to the south, showing how the derailment looked in the proximity of the elevator again. And again, just showing the damage even a low-speed event can have when you're talking about that kind of weight and that kind of inertia. The wheels on a rail car are called the trucks. Trucks are knocked right off of the flat cars. And when you talk about rail disasters anymore, what comes to mind to a lot of people is something like this, rail derailments. The Castleton fire, December 30th, 2013. This happened within a mile of city limits. Take a look at that. Take a look at the intensity of that. The thick black smoke. You couldn't be within 300 feet of this thing because of the radiant heat. That I can guarantee you. But we wanted to show you, we were extremely lucky that day, Commissioners, extremely lucky. There was a lot of things that could have went really, really wrong that just simply didn't. This is the 4th Avenue East crossing. If we would have had a different set of circumstances where we would have had to evacuate, if we evacuated a 1,000-foot area on the north side, right up in this area, that puts us between 2nd and 3rd Street. That would impact Roosevelt Elementary School right there. The east side of this circle takes us to 6th Avenue East. The west side of that circle takes us to 1st Avenue East. A lot of impact in that area. Of course, the south side, you're a little bit better off because this is fairly open. But if we would have had to go a half a mile in our evacuation, this takes us all the way up to 7th Street. The hospital's right over here. This is between 3rd and 4th Avenue West, between 3rd and 4th Avenue West. Almost to 10th Avenue East. This is just past 9th Avenue East right here. And again, you can see where the circle ends down here. If the event would have happened, if an event worse than that would have happened at the State Avenue crossing, that would have resulted in a half-mile evacuation zone. This is what that would have looked like. That's a half-mile circle. The reason we want to show you these things, Commissioners, is because we really need to be prepared. There isn't any way you fight a fire like that. You try to keep whatever's going on from getting worse than where it is. You establish a perimeter. You make sure nobody goes any closer than that perimeter. You get people out of that perimeter if you can, and you accept the fact that there may be casualties. But there isn't a piece of equipment, apparatus, or a tool made that lets you go up here and just cause this to go away. All we have going for us is preparation and training. The things we need to do is we need to have a strong local emergency planning committee. We need to have our evacuation procedures in place. We need to know when we're going to shelter in place or when we're going to try to move people out. We need to know how we're going to transport people if we have to move them and where they're going to go, where are the shelters. And we need to know that there may be casualties and we're going to have to address those things. We were very lucky that morning. Dickinson Police Department, the Dickinson Fire Department, the Stark County Emergency Management, Southwest District Health, Dickinson Street Department and Public Works Departments were all involved in that minor train derailment. And everything worked the way it should. We do know that we need to do some more work. We need to strengthen things that we have in place. And just wanted to show you, just wanted to bring you some more information on that. That's all I've got. If you got any questions?
Chief, do we know, did the track fail or did the car fail?
We don't have any information one way or the other on that from Burlington Northern. We're hoping that we will, but we had nothing at this point. We don't know if it was a mechanical failure or human error. We don't know. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Well, we'll move on to engineering. 6A, Mr. Kubas is a permit that the state has issued, I believe, or wants to issue?
Mr. President, Commission, this is a permit, a standard drainage permit that the DOT grants to, in our case, to a city. If a drainage permit is requested within the city of Dickinson, the permittee is always the city of Dickinson. This is a request from the Come and Go station. If you recall, several months ago, the Come and Go property had received approval on a new plat. They've also gotten approval from city staff for a building permit for a new convenience store at the same location. It'll just be a new building moved a little bit further back off the intersection. To meet current city ordinance, they have a stormwater pond, and the pond discharges into the DOT's ditch, which is the I-94 business loop ditch. From there, it'll enter into our Dickinson drainage channel between 10th Avenue East and 9th Avenue East, and then goes down towards the stockyards from there. So this has been reviewed by our consultant as we reviewed their site plan and their stormwater calculations. Approval was granted on that. They got their building permit. Then they applied to the DOT for this permit, which the DOT has reviewed and comes back to the city of Dickinson to sign off on this approval. City staff has reviewed this. We've reviewed the site plan as well, and city staff recommends approval.
So the motion is to approve this drainage permit? Is that
correct?
Yep, okay. All right, you've heard Mr. Kubas's introduction and explanation. Are there any comments or questions?
You know, I know this is a standard action by the DOT. But I know that that permit also says we have responsibility for maintenance. How much of that maintenance are we formally giving back to the property owner, and how much are we keeping ourselves?
That, you know, I'd have to look back if we have a development agreement with the Come and Go plat. Right now, it was a pretty large plat. They're only building on a portion of it. I believe this would be like any other private pond. They have the maintenance of the pond. That's standard with every private pond. It's just here the outlet of the pond and the outlet of the pipe is in the DOT's ditch, which they permit through the city.
I understand. And so if there's, if somebody drives over that outlet, or if there's erosion, or whatever it may be, I mean, that's going to be our responsibility by this permit.
By this permit, it would be the city's responsibility, which we would...
Should not we somehow pass that back to that property owner?
We would in all other instances, and we can here, too. It's just to move this permit forward as the outlet is on DOT property, the permit needs to be with the city.
I understand.
Yep.
But concurrently, I would hope we're bringing the property owner into this.
We can, absolutely.
Other comments? Is there a motion regarding this item?
Move to approve, Mr. President.
Second.
We have the motion, the second. Other discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Altman?
Aye.
Mr. Jackson?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries. You have a report, Mr. Kubas?
Yes, Mr. President, Commission. Behind you, I have a photo, and this is an area in East Dickinson. It's just north of the I-94 business loop east again. You can see a yellow line. The businesses there are Dan Porter's on the right-hand side, and on the left-hand side, the big white parking lot is Bush Lumber, and then Total Safety is in the middle there. We've been approached over some amount of time, probably more than a year, from those property owners to the north. There's 6 homes to the north, about the maintenance and the I guess legal access for the public on that street. And the street in between the businesses and those 6 homes, it's a quarter-mile long, and it was dedicated through what was called the Weber subdivision plat in 1974 as a private access easement. It sits on 33 feet that it's solely an easement dedicated to the use of that subdivision. But what's happened in the last several years is development has occurred to the west of the Weber subdivision, and now there are actually streets that the public can use. It makes it a through route. If you want to get off the I-94 business loop and venture your way into town, this street, which is would be a continuation of 6th Street, it's become a through route. And right now, I think in the past, the city street department has maintained it. By maintenance, I think I'd be limited to snow removal. When we became aware that this was a private access easement and not a public street, city staff had made the recommendation to not maintain this street anymore. So right now we have a street that may be being used by the public, but that we really don't have the legal right to go out there and maintain it. The other issue is when it was developed, sometime after 1974, the fire protection, the hydrants, were put along this private easement. So we have public facilities that are placed on a private easement. So we've been asked by some of these residents to take a look at what it would take for the city to take this over as what I would consider a glorified alley. It sits on 30 feet, which is a little bit wider than our standard alley. The pavement width that's out there right now is between 16 and 18 feet wide. Some of it feels a little bit wider because it abuts right up to some of the parking lots of those businesses. This is something we can work on over the winter, but I think what it would require is those 6 property owners who have a 30-foot dedicated access easement to convey that in some form to the city as dedicated right-of-way. And right now, the road is not in great shape. And I'm not saying that we would need it built up to a city standard with several inches of pavement and curb and gutter, but we also don't want to be putting our heavy snow plows and garbage trucks out on a street that's in disrepair. So my recommendation would be is that we would create some sort of an improvement district here, a street improvement district, assess the adjacent properties, and at that point, take the street over as a city street if the right-of-way was dedicated. But it's a real unique situation. We have a process in place to vacate existing right-of-ways, but not a very clear-cut process to create a right-of-way out of an easement, other than the city going forward and pushing this project through. I have not spoken, I don't know that city staff has spoke to all of the property owners along this street, but we have been approached by more than one. And it creates an unusual circumstance where it's a through street that's not designated as a public road. So right now, I guess what the engineering department is looking for is some input from the commission. I know it's a unique situation. If we need some time to think about it, would like to put a plan in place this winter so we can get back to those property owners and tell them, here's how we feel the best way to move forward with solving this problem is. That's all I had, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Kubas. Any reaction by commissioners to the issue he just presented?
Well, I think you're probably headed in the right direction, but I do think we have to insist on having a decent street there if we're going to take it. And yes, maybe a modified section, but we do need a good street to work on. And if we can maybe do a little bit more than the 30 feet. I don't know if there's room out there to try to get more than 30 feet. Maybe we should try to do that.
I don't know that there would be on the north side where all of that easement is dedicated right now. And I haven't looked at the south side. Right now, all this property sits on the residential side of that line between the businesses and the homeowners.
Yeah.
Other comments?
President Johnson?
Yes.
I have one question. How many of the property owners, are all the property owners for this? I know that one property owner on the east of that road, has, you know, we've had issues with them blocking the alley or the easement.
Again, we haven't heard from all of the property owners. It's just been brought to our attention.
Okay.
I think a lot of the issue is that it is a private road, and they're seeing a lot of through traffic using this, what used to be, I suppose, a fairly quiet road. Every once in a while, I'm sure someone would drive through there. Now it's getting to be more and more through traffic, and they're kind of caught in between a rock and a hard place. They're saying, well, we can't patrol this street. I know we have some private streets in Dickinson. Most of them probably are dead-end streets, though. And so this one creates a unique situation where it's a private street that's now become a through street.
I actually did drive out there, and it is barricaded now about 3/4 of the way to the west. I don't know if that's a temporary barricade or not. But, I mean, this has no street name on it, this one here, does it? I mean, because the street to the north there, when you drive on that one, if you look, say, to the left, and the street address is 580, to the north, you'd think that 581 would be right off to your right if you're going east. But you actually have to drive around and come up the street we're talking about here to get those house numbers. So the backyards of the south side face the front yards of the north side with the street in between there. So I don't know if this actually has a street name or not.
Technically, no, it doesn't. I think if we would go down this route of making it be a dedicated public right-of-way, it would be the logical continuance of 6th Street East. It lines up with the right-of-way of 6th Street further to the west. But right now, I think it was I'm not sure why it was built and why the houses were oriented to the south, but that's how it got built.
I think there's going to be a lot of work there. I think you're going to have drainage problems there the way it is set up now. I mean, I see the drainage problems now, and I think it's going to take a lot of work for us.
Well, I wanted to bring it in front of you. It's something we've been approached to take a look at. Maybe the next step is to do a little more digging on what the cost might be to make those improvements, to bring it up to a better standard, and send some letters to landowners.
Yeah, it looks to me like it's one of those things that you almost need, if there's 6 homeowners there, you almost need all 6 of them to agree that to go forward with making that a, city responsibility as opposed to private responsibility. And, that may be difficult, but it's probably worth the effort, because if, in a sense, by default, it's become a through street, then it's not really fair to those 6 homeowners that they have to, that they provide that at their cost.
Okay, well, we'll work on that and make contact with all 6 of the property owners who share in that easement. Thank you.
Anything else?
Nope, that's all I had.
Okay. Well, we have nothing from Public Works, so we'll go to Community Development, and Mr. Curtin, we'll turn those items over to you.
Mr. President, Commissioners, I have 2 rezoning petitions that are combined into one motion. They are for 5 properties located in the general vicinity of 6th Street Southwest and Highway 22. It is a rezoning petition from community commercial to low-density residential for those properties. There is no change from the first reading, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Curtin. Is there anyone from the public that wants to comment on ordinance 1560? If you do, you may do so now. There's no one that wishes to comment. Any comments or questions by commissioners? Is there a
I'll
mo-
move we approve second reading final passage of 1560.
Second.
We have the motion and the second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. Mr. Jackson?
Aye.
Mr. Altman?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. So the motion carries. We'll go to item B.
Mr. President, excuse
Oh,
me.
sorry.
I thought when we did this for first reading that we did 2 separate ordinances.
We did.
We had it, and after discussions with Attorney Colling, since we had the property owners as in general vicinity, we decided to combine it all into
So
one.
we're basically revising 1560 is what we're doing.
I'm sorry.
The
Well,
First reading, the ordinance as it appeared in first reading for 1560 is being revised now to include all of them.
To include all 5 properties, yes.
Okay.
The zoning designations are not unchanged at all. It merely changes from 2 ordinances into 1.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. President, the next item is the second reading of the zoning text amendment to amend Chapter 34 subdivisions, Chapter 39 zoning to require all unplatted lots that rezone to be platted. Many times we have rezoning petitions that have a meets and bounds description, and in our current definition of subdivision, it is a little bit ambiguous if those properties would be required to replat. This clarifies the language to make it so. City staff recommends approval, and there is no change from the first reading, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Curtin. Is there anyone that would like to comment on 1562 from the public? No comments from the public. Any comments by commissioners?
Something dawned on me a couple of days ago. This will only affect properties that are being rezoned, correct?
This is just for that portion of our subdivision regulations, and also.
What about properties that have already been zoned but are not now platted and are undeveloped, and you get a building permit application?
I'm applying it from this day forward for the clarification. There was an evolution, I guess, as part of my interest of how I was interpreting the subdivision regulations. A year or 2 ago, I wouldn't have looked at our subdivision regulations and said if you wanted to rezone the property, you weren't going to subdivide it currently. At that point, I would have said, okay, you can go ahead and rezone it. But after some discussions on some other matters, made a change about 6 months ago to start to require that. So
Okay.
this would apply from this day forward for all properties, just to clarify that particular issue.
For all properties, even if they have already been zoned?
No, we're not retro planning. We're not retroactively
Okay.
applying that.
So that's my question, though. If there's a property that's already zoned but undeveloped, and somebody comes in for a building permit,
They would be, as long as, I'm applying it from today forward, or applying it from several months ago where we had a couple of rezoning petitions were required in the plat. So I'm not going to retroactively apply it. To answer your question, it was a year or 2 ago, they rezoned it, and it was a meets and bounds description. They come in today for a building permit. I will not require them to plat it before we issue a building permit.
okay, can we explore the possibility of requiring platting at the time of a building permit application? If a property has already been zoned? Do you know what I'm trying to say?
Understand. You're talking about retroactively applying this, or
No, I'm just saying that a building permit application should also trigger
Oh,
platting.
okay.
That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
And I think it should.
So if I'm understanding you correctly, if you're not changing the zoning, but you come in with a meets and bounds description, require plating for that. If that's the case, then I should amend the zoning ordinance to reflect that and say for a building permit, you need to have, if it's a meets and bounds description, it needs to be platted in order for you to get a building permit. We can go through that process.
I think we should
Commissioner
go
Jackson.
ahead with this
Yes.
tonight. But I would just ask that you guys look at that and
Bring
see
forth
what
an
other
amendment through planning
jurisdictions are
commission.
doing. And
We could do so. Actually, Wednesday, that'd be a perfect time to talk about that after our regular meeting on the planning commission.
Other comments? Did we have a motion on this ordinance? No.
Nope, I'll make the motion to approve.
I'll second.
We have the motion, the second. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. Mr. Altman?
Aye.
Mr. Jackson? Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries.
Mr. President, the last item on the agenda, other than reports, is the Gladden Subdivision Development Agreement. If you recall, back on September 2nd, the City Commission approved the final plat for the Gladden subdivision. Part of the plat requirements, they were required to have a DA for it in order for the Mylar to be signed. They have the DA, or development agreement. Is a standard development agreement. The property is located south of 32nd Street Southwest and west of Highway 22. City staff recommends approval.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Catan. Are there any comments or questions here by commissioners? Is there a motion regarding this development agreement?
I'll move
to approve,
it.
Mr.
I'll
President.
second.
We have the motion to approve and the second. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Jackson?
Aye.
Mr. Altman?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries.
Then the last item is just for your information, the building permit activity report. I'm available if you have any specific questions. We are down from last year, in which each month I've been talking about that. I think a key figure for us is that even though this is a down year compared to last year and the year before that, or the year before that, as of the end of August, we are just on the building permit side, not including other ones. We have, we're right at the budget projection for this year. So that's some silver lining with respect to our building activity report. Mr. President?
Thank you, Mr. Catan. Are there any comments or questions for Mr. Catan? All right. Are there any reports by commissioners? Not. Is there anyone from the public that would like to address the commission? If so, you may do so now. Come to the podium, state your name, we'll hear your comments. There's no one from the public. Chair to entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion carries. We're adjourned.